Hey everybody, how's it going? Good evening and welcome to this special State of the University update about Signum University. I am super excited to share with you guys some of the kind of amazing things that have been going on at Signum University. Well, of course, for like the last 7 years, but in particular, there have been some fairly exciting moments here in the last month, really, especially. So let me explain. First, I don't want to draw out suspense. I'm not trying to be super mysterious about things, but the main thing that is going on is we have officially begun the comprehensive review process for our New Hampshire state certification. We are being certified in the state of New Hampshire, up here where I'm living currently, and this is a really exciting moment. We're not finished with the process yet. We're still in the midst of the process. We're working with them, but this is something I know. There are many of you I know who have been associated with Signum and with Mythgard for many years, and who know full well, without me having to say another word, exactly what this means for us. We have been working and struggling and aiming at this moment for many years, and the day has finally come upon us, and it's come upon us relatively quickly. In fact, it's kind of burst upon us in some ways slightly unexpectedly. So it is. It's been a really exciting thing. Let me actually just kind of tell you the story there. So. This started with, you'll remember when I was away at the end of February, the last week of February, and I was like, I'm not going to be in contact at all. I'm going to be completely, I started going on vacation with my family, and I was going to be completely out of internet contact for almost the whole week. Well, there was only one day in which I was not completely out of contact, and that's the day that my family and I were on an island in the Caribbean where my phone was working, and so I'm like, okay, I better turn on my phone and check and make sure. And while my phone was on for like 4 hours during that one day, I get a phone call from the Secretary of Education in the state of New Hampshire, asking me to come in and have a meeting with the higher education folks, and I was like, okay. I mean, it was like I was literally in a wetsuit, like with my family on a little floating houseboat thing where we were doing like some helmet diving and snorkeling, and I'm holding my phone and I'm like, I better take this. Sorry. Anyway, so that was really neat. So I had a meeting with them the week I got back. Drove up to Concord for that meeting, and it was a really great meeting. We kind of got to know each other. Got to tell them a little bit about who we are and what we're trying to do, and they wanted to know how far along we were in the process. And of course, we've been targeting late this spring or early this summer to submit our formal documentation for the comprehensive review process. So we had been getting our documentation together anyway, so we set up a follow-up meeting 3 weeks later. That was the one that happened last Wednesday, where we were going to show them what we had so far. And I kind of took that as a little bit of a challenge. We had originally been, the schedule we had made was, let's see if we can get all of our material together by June 1st at the absolute latest. And now I'm like, okay, March 28th, people, let's do this. So we put together as much as we could just to show them, because we wanted to show them, we're really serious. And after our initial talk, they were really interested in Signum and what we were doing, and they seemed really open to the idea. But I also got the sense that they kind of thought that we were not very far along in the process. So I was like, all right, we're gonna impress them at the end of March, right? And that's if you remember, those of you who do Exploring the Lord of the Rings with me may remember the book I held up last Tuesday, which is the day before I went to my follow-up meeting up in Concord, which was our printout, our 286 page printout of the documentation we had put together for that meeting, and I think we definitely seem to have made the impression that we're really serious and quite far along in our process, much more than I think they expected us to be, such that they began talking right away about assembling the evaluation team and getting everything going. In fact, there was this sort of very interesting moment in the conversation where the commissioner of higher education, who's the one I was meeting with, said, well, I think we should really think about getting ready for the May 8th meeting. And I'm like, May 8th. Wow. Okay. So I'm thinking like, all right, so have everything, because what I handed in was a lot, but there's more that we needed to do. It was not totally done. So I'm like, okay, all right, I think we can get to the final documentation by May 8th. That's fine. And so I'm like, okay, so we should submit by May 8th, before, how many weeks before May 8th should we submit? And he's like, no, to be completely done with the process by May, to have you come up for a final vote of approval on May 8th. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, right. So excellent. Yeah. Anyway, it's just, to suddenly find, and I don't know if I can describe to you the sort of experience of, we've been building this for 7 years. We've been working towards this moment for 7 years, and it's always been, again, especially those of you who've been around for a long time know, this is something that, I keep saying, we're getting there, we're gonna get there, eventually it's gonna happen, and we can't do this yet, but we're almost there, and to be at the point where all of a sudden, you're it's like, okay, 6 weeks from now we're going to be done all of a sudden. It's amazing. Now, I in the end, I'm not sure the logistics are going to work out. That was a really ambitious plan of theirs at the Department of Education to get us through to the May 8th meeting, and it would require a lot of logistics to line up perfectly, and I'm not sure they're going to, but even if they don't, we're looking at June, right? June for the completing of the process. Now, of course, I must add, as a disclaimer, we're still in the evaluation process, right? We've not been guaranteed that we're going to pass and everything. I don't want to sound too presumptuous. I don't want to it's like when I was testing for my black belt, like you couldn't say like, oh, I'm testing for my black belt. I don't want to assume that I'm going to pass in advance. Right. Anyway, so we'll see how things go. But talking with the people in the Department of Education, they have been so great. I've been so delighted by their supportiveness and their willingness. One of the things that has always been one of the big questions, right, as we've been thinking about, or as we've been, not thinking, imagining really is a better word for it, honestly, as we've been imagining what it would be like to actually go through this comprehensive review process. We've always known that it would demand a lot of flexibility on their part. Not that we're asking for special treatment, because it's not about special treatment. It's about setting new precedents, because we're different than anything they've ever done before. For instance, the most obvious and simple example, right? Everybody in education will know the primary element of any of these kinds of campus evaluations, whether it's a certification evaluation or an accreditation evaluation, the centerpiece of the evaluation process is a site visit, where they come, the evaluation team comes out to your campus and tours your campus and sees your facilities and meets all your people and all that stuff, right? And is sort of hosted by you for 1 day or 3 days or however long it is. We don't have a campus, right? It's part of our entire point that we don't have a campus. And so, we have to, they have to be flexible. They've never had a situation where they have to do a site visit with somebody that doesn't have a site, right? Joe, you laugh. Joe Hoffman was just saying I should invite them to the lecture hall in Lotro. I totally did, actually. But we were joking about that. The Commissioner of Higher Education was joking about that. He asked me, he was like, do you ever teach in, within a 3D immersive video environment? And I'm like, well, funny you should ask that, right? We actually do. I actually do that some. And so I told him about Lotro, and I told him about the Lore Hall in Bree and everything, and he's like, "Oh, we should totally do the site visit there." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, no problem. I'll help the evaluation team create characters and walk them through the intro area." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, okay, that's probably not good." But anyway, it was really funny. But yeah, so yeah, no, Robert, exactly. I told him, I'm like, that's if there's one place in the world where we can be said to have a campus, it's in Lotro, right? The Lore Hall, which was built for us to teach in. Anyway, that was really that was really that was really fun. They were cool. That was they seem to kind of get, or again, at least sort of, very much be open to that part of us. Because it's not just that we are structurally different from most other institutions, which we are. It's also that we're bigger dorks than most other institutions. And they seemed cool with that. And that was fun. But anyway, it was cool. So, anyway, so like I said, I think, realistically, most likely, possibly May, but most likely June is when we would be coming to the end of that process. And there's a bunch of other things that need to happen with sort of bureaucracy with the state, both involving the Secretary of State's office in New Hampshire and even indeed the state legislature has to pass something. They have to pass a piece of legislation like entering Signum University into the rolls and stuff. Like, it's seriously kind of cool, actually. But anyway, that was really neat. So let me just sort of say for a minute a little bit more about what this means for Signum. Signum has been, for the last 7 years, Signum, it's not like Signum University hasn't been a thing, right? Because, all of you guys who have been involved with it and have, taken our courses and participated in our Mythgard programming and everything else know that we're a thing, right? And that it's that, but fundamentally, when it comes to, as an educational institution, Signum University has primarily been an idea, right? It has been an idea that we have been in the process of making a reality, but not yet there, right? Not yet fully there. And it's something, I think that for many of you, especially many of you who, just sort of participate in our Mythgard stuff and mostly, are involved with, interacting with, whether it be exploring the Lord of the Rings or whatever, there's many of you might not even have heard me talk very much about Signum as far as like explaining what is the mission of Signum University, what's the point of it, why have we established our own university, which seems like a crazy thing to do, and the longer I'm involved in it, the crazier it seems. Why do that or anything? And one of the reasons that I don't, I think, talk about it as much as I otherwise might is that it has chiefly been an idea. Sometimes I'll talk about the idea, but I can't make any big claims about Signum, and it sounds kind of silly in some ways. Not silly exactly, but presumptuous, sort of ahead of things, to sort of talk about all the things that we hope to be able to accomplish in general, for people and stuff, because we're not there yet, right? This moment, this transition, the actually being evaluated and, Lord willing, passing our evaluation and being accepted and certified in the state of New Hampshire, is the moment when Signum ceases to be an idea and becomes a legalized, legitimate reality. It puts us on the same footing with every other university in New Hampshire. So, for instance, it means the Higher Education Commission, which is the group of people who will be voting ultimately to determine whether we pass or fail our evaluation, the Commission of Higher Education in New Hampshire, which is the oversight organization over almost all of the universities in New Hampshire. I say almost all because there's a legal clause in the laws of New Hampshire that excludes Dartmouth. Actually, Dartmouth is in its own league. But anyway, the commission is made up of the presidents of the universities of all of the schools in New Hampshire, and I'll be one of them. So there will be like the big table with the chancellor of the University System of New Hampshire there, and the president of Southern New Hampshire University, which you've probably heard of, the big online school, and the president of Plymouth State University, and the all the other colleges and schools, and me. There, and Signum University will be there at the table, on equal, operating on equal levels with, all of the other institutions in New Hampshire. That's almost inconceivable to me, to imagine actually living in that world and being able to operate like that, sort of get fully developed, fully recognized. It's such a huge deal, just an enormous thing. I'm going to get back in a minute to okay, you know me, it'll be more than a minute. I'll get back in a few minutes to talking a little bit more about a little bit more practically what that means as far as the whole trajectory of Signum University, because this is such a huge moment in our development. So what does that mean? I see in theory what makes it huge, but what are the practical effects of it? What does it mean? How is the life of Signum over the next 5 years going to be different from the life of Signum in the 5 years leading up to this, for instance? So that's so I'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to kind of pause and go back to the whole idea of Signum University for a bit, just because I want to make sure that everybody knows why we're doing this. Again, why do we found a university instead of just running fun programs? For those of you who've been around a long time, will remember that I founded the Mythgard Institute first, right? My very first impulse was to just kind of expand a little bit on my Tolkien Professor podcast idea into founding this new institution called the Mythgard Institute, which was going to which is about sort of slightly more broadly, but enabling more opportunities for free programming and Tolkien studies and fantasy and science fiction, and of course Mythgard Institute is still doing that to this day. So why did I build a university around it, which is essentially what happened, right? Why take that step at all? And the reason for that, what motivated me to do that? What motivated me to build a university around it? What motivated me to leave my tenured job and do this full time? Several years back, as I did, was my desire, my conviction that this is something that really can make a difference for a lot of people. And I know some of you who are tuning in are not Americans, and so I'm going to be speaking especially to the state of things in America. But of course, as all Americans know, the higher education system in America is in trouble. I mean, it's seriously broken. There are some very big problems, and I used to be part of that system, and I felt it. Every year I would sit and talk with my graduating English majors who are graduating with $40,000, $80,000, $100,000 in debt. And it just broke my heart. It broke my heart to see these people leaving with just, sort of shackled to this enormous amount of debt that it was, so hard for them ever to have, to be able to repay, and it's very difficult. And the problem is there's no real good way out of it, right? That is to say, it's not like campuses can just, it's not like colleges can just cut their tuition in half and be like, oh, it's fine, right? It's fine. It's not fine. They can't do it. They can't. Most undergraduate programs in America are barely cutting even. It doesn't matter how expensive they are. The really expensive ones barely cutting even, right? I mean, it's the financial situation in higher education is very bleak, despite the fact that their costs are unsustainably high. I mean, this is a well-known problem. I'm not saying anything that's novel or new here, right? The thing that motivated me back in 2011 when I first had these, sort of came up with the Mythgard idea, which quickly blossomed into the Signum idea, is there can be an alternative, right? Students deserve an alternative. Right now, there's very little alternative between either compromising your education and not going into debt, or getting a good education and going into debt. And that's still often, at least most people calculate that that's the better gamble. And so they end up going into debt. There needs to be an option. There needs to be a third choice, right? And I saw a way, through the kinds of classes we were experimenting, starting with the Silmarillion seminar, and then the Mythgard classes that we began experimenting with. I could see a way that we could do it, right? And it's super simple, right? The solution, it's like you don't need an MBA to figure out that if you want to be able to offer a really high quality educational product, like most brick and mortar schools do, but have radically lower prices, right? Radically lower tuition. You have to cut costs, right? I mean, that's like if you lower your overhead, you can lower prices and still do fine, right? And so that's what we do, right? We have no campus, right? It is part of our mission statement never to have a campus. We are a completely virtual institution. This means, of course, lots of very positive things, like the way that we make things possible and accessible to lots of people. The way that we're able to just ignore geographic distinctions has a big a big impact on people. But the motivation was not even that. That was a perk. Right. And it's a wonderful perk. But again, the goal was, let's save money so that we can save people money, so that we can do, for me personally, there are 3 questions that I would ask an institution. If I'm evaluating an institution, are they doing a good job as an educational institution? To me, there are 3 questions that you ask, right? 1, how good is the education? How good is their teaching? Can you learn stuff there, right? Is the educational program good? That's one question. The second question is their tuition affordable, right? Do they offer their educational services at a rate that real human beings can really afford without impoverishing themselves, right? That's the second question. And the third question is, do they treat their people well? Right? Do they actually, their faculty, their staff, do they exploit them? Right? Are they finding ways around paying their people? Do they take good care of them? Do they pay them a living wage and treat them like dignified human beings? Those are the 3 questions. And honestly, I'm not sure that there's an institutional, at least I don't know that I've found an educational institution in the country that can say yes to all 3 of those things. There are a bunch of them that can say yes to 2, right? There are many schools, for instance, that have a great educational program and that pay their people, most of their people anyway, a decent salary, but they don't have affordable tuition by any stretch. Right? There are some that might have a pretty good education and might have reasonably affordable tuition, but normally that's done at the expense of the faculty and staff, who often are not paid really a living wage. So how can you do all 3? And again, our answer is to not have a campus, right? It is that college campuses are awesome. And, and I hope you guys understand, I'm not like just trying to badmouth things or anything. This is just business reality, right? I mean, I loved my on-campus education if we can afford it, which I don't know, and our kids want to go there, I would send them, if they want, but there needs to be an option, right? There needs to be a choice. There needs to be something available for people who don't want to go into there, just simply can't afford it and can't do it. I see a bunch of really good comments about this. Let's see, like one person who says, I watched all my peers go off to school not having the means to follow, and then I watched them come home to jobs that pay them the same that I earn, only they carried crushing debt. Yeah, exactly. It is indeed, as she adds, gut-wrenching and maddening to watch. So yes, affordable education was and is my wildest and fondest dream come true. That is our goal. Our goal is that always, 20 years down the road, We want to offer people an education that they can afford to pay themselves, like get a part-time job and work your own way through school. We're always, of course, part of the evaluation process. We're always asked to talk about our financial aid program. And we're like, okay, number one, our primary instrument for financial aid is not charging so much that people need financial aid. Like making the whole thing affordable from the beginning is step one in our financial aid process. So yeah, that's exactly it. And I see one of the people on Twitch has said that, that it was the reason that she left academia. She loves teaching, but the system is both unsustainable and brutal on the non-tenure faculty. It really is. And I will admit, as a faculty member myself, who had recently been through the tenure process also, even though, I got tenure, but still, that whole idea of trying to another very serious perk to starting Signum was the ability to try to devise a system that would just hit the reset button on the whole thing, right? So okay, let's redo, the whole the faculty thing and the tenure thing and the faculty staff divide. And thank goodness I was just talking with one of our Signum folks who her day job, she's working at another university. She's staff at another university, and she proposed an event there and was told you're just staff. You can't do that. We're not really interested in what you're doing. And I'm like, seriously? Anyway, yeah. So it is really, it's another excellent perk to be able to try to kind of reinvent the culture and start a new environment, which is not really kind of based on a lot of the old kind of principles. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah. Serena says she's even told that as faculty. Exactly. No, that's exactly that's exactly what happens. Yeah. So this is something that means a lot to me, and that I think is a really important thing for our society. I mean, I remember in the 2012 presidential election. So this was ages ago, but that was right at the beginning with Signum University. The student debt crisis was it kept coming up as a talking point among presidential candidates that year, and people were like, oh, how are we going to solve this? How can we possibly make tuition affordable? And I'm over here, I'm like, actually, I got an idea, and it's kind of working, right? But what could I say, right? What could I do? I was nobody, and I didn't have a real university yet, just an idea. Again, that's one of the reasons why this is so this is such a big deal. So anyway, it is because I genuinely believe that Signum University is really onto something here. I genuinely believe that Signum University, we're trying to establish a model for what higher education in the 21st century could be, right? Being able to take advantage of the technology that we have available to us in the 21st century, we have a new model of education that is now open to us. Not saying it's the only way, not saying that everybody should do it just like us, but it's a thing that can happen now that couldn't have happened before. And it enables us to do things very differently and to create a quite new paradigm, a new business paradigm, a new educational paradigm, a new faculty and staff paradigm that was just not possible in the old world. And so this is... it is because we genuinely believe at Signum that we can have an impact on to be a role model for higher education. We want to be a voice that says it can be done better. There are ways out of the hole that higher education has dug for itself here in the second half of the 20th century, and we're showing people how we can do that. So anyway, I mean, like I said, it's a big idea, and again, this is another reason why it's so important to me. So remarkable to think exactly that their Signum University will be at the table with the big boys, right? Some of the very big boys, of course. And I use the word boys deliberately there, actually. Maybe I shouldn't. But anyway, we will have a voice in those discussions. We would have a voice in, determining educational policy in New Hampshire, So it's a big deal. Do we get a .edu address, Robert? Not yet. That's our plan. Yeah. And Lynn, I agree. That's another major thing. Lynn is talking about, experience with online education where the faculty, and I would also add the administration often are not really committed to online teaching, and how often still online education has kind of a bad name as an obviously sort of second-rate thing, and a lot of that is because often it's very half-hearted, because frankly in many cases it's designed to kind of underwrite the campus programs, right? A university sees an opportunity to charge the same fees for the same class with radically lower costs, right? Because we can have the faculty person teach it once, then fire them, right? Or then, it's brutal, but it happens, right? Anyway, so yes, that kind of thing does happen, and it's certainly for us to be able to stand up and say, no, that is not all of what online education can be. You are not even beginning to scratch the surface of what real online education can be. No, most online education still is essentially a correspondence course, right? A more efficient correspondence course, right? But so much of it is still just correspondence course, and that's changing. Slowly that's changing. But there is not very rarely is there a real commitment to that kind of change. But anyway, yeah, no, exactly. I agree that so often online education is either, it's just sort of a for-profit thing, sort of getting people through degrees, or it's, sort of the old way crammed into a new medium. Yeah, that's very often what happens. Anyway, I say this is the big idea, but I want to make sure everybody also understands the challenges that Signum has faced. So, okay. The assumptions of this system are really kind of amazing, actually. If you look at the requirements for starting, right? Like the certification process, like the accreditation process, what you're supposed to look like in order to approach and knock on the door, right, is a kind of remarkable list of things that you're supposed to be and supposed to be able to do. In the end, it kind of boils down to this. The whole system is designed to accommodate new entry only for two kinds of institutions. One, an institution that is affiliated with an existing institution, and so it's able to build off of the resources, both personnel, financial, and facilities resources of the parent institution, or they're supposed to be rich, right? That is, if you get a whole lot of money and can buy all this stuff, then you'll be able to make yourself look like you're supposed to look, right? So, I've been joking with my certification team at Signum that I could do this really long podcast thing where I go through and do a close, because I've been occupied in doing close reading of like the legal statutes, right? So it's what I do. Yeah, there's so much that you can see, right? But it's what it kind of comes down to is that the system assumes that one of two things is true. Either A, you're already in the club, or B, you're rich, right? You have a whole lot of money. And again, I'm not like insulting anything. I'm just like, that's like the facts of those are the assumptions that are made, and we have come up against that assumption again and again and again. And the thing is, it's not an unreasonable assumption, actually, right? Not based on 20th century standards. I mean, back in the old days, by which I mean, like the 20th century, right? Back in the old days, one of those two things would have had to be true. It would have been impossible, absolutely impossible, to start up a new university from scratch with no funding, right? I mean, you couldn't have done it. You would have at least had, because you would have had to at least get a place to hold classes in, right? How would you pay the rent? You would have had to at least rent a room to teach classes in, right? But how could you even do that, right? I mean, what are you going to draw from the people around? I mean, that would have been very difficult to do, right? So again, it's an assumption, but it's an assumption that makes sense from a 20th century perspective. Signum has sort of done the impossible, right? That thing which all of the codes and all of the procedures and everything assume, just like they clearly don't even entertain it as a possibility. We have done this from the beginning. We have started up from nothing, with nothing. No endowment, no investing. We had no startup investors, and this is all because we wanted to stay true to our principles, right? So we couldn't get an investor because an investor would expect a return on investment, and investors are getting awful canny these days. If you try to sell, an investor on a proposition that says, give money to fund our goal is to keep our profits aggressively low, right? Our goal is to give away our service for the lowest price we can possibly do in order to minimize our profits and maximize the benefits to people. That's our goal. Doesn't that sound like something you wanna invest in? Like, no, like most people don't do that. So we couldn't. We're nonprofit. We couldn't do that. And again, the system makes so many assumptions. There are lots of places, for instance, that give, like, foundations that give, that say that they support innovations in education, right? And are really hoping for, wanting to financially support exciting new ideas that might come and help change the face of higher education. Except most of them require you. They won't pay attention to you unless you're already accredited. And I don't know if it's because they don't understand or what. I literally don't know. But again, like, accreditation, that's not where you start. You have to exist for years. And if you're starting from scratch, like if you're an innovator who really needs that startup funding for innovative ideas, it's going to take you many years, like, 7 or so, to get to the point where you can even knock on the door of the accrediting bureaus or of for state certification, because of the requirements that they have for what they expect to see when you knock on the door. So it creates, all the way through, it creates this this sort of catch-22 loop, right, that we're in again and again and again. But we have fought through those on one level after another, again and again. And we have done this with no startup funding, from scratch, with only 3 things, right? With the enthusiasm of our students, who have been so delighted to take our courses and so supportive of the courses that we were offering, for the generosity of our donors and supporters, like many of you who have helped us, over the last 5 years as we've been doing our fundraising, and of course, from the just the enthusiasm of our volunteers, right? So much of the work that is done by Signum staff are done by volunteers, by people who have bought into this, who also share this vision, who believe, who have seen that Signum is a really awesome thing, who have helped to build this new culture, and some of you are talking about your own experiences in higher education and stuff, and I got to tell you, it's a kind of a fun little commune that we're building here at Signum. We've gone well out of our our way to try to, acknowledging all of those things, all those, traditional systems of exploitation, whether it's of adjunct faculty, whether it's of staff, and that kind of caste system between faculty and staff, and don't even get me started on administrators, and the way that we have worked to sort of level that out and develop new systems that create a totally new and really fun environment. So a lot of people, as I say, have really bought into this and have been working for years, either almost or entirely without pay, because we want this thing to be. And we believe in this thing, and that this is going to become, that we are going to get to the point where this will finally become something that will be not just an idea, but a real thing, and will be able to establish itself firmly on a firm financial foundation, so that we can begin, in fact, to pay our staff as they deserve. And well, I don't know if I'll ever be able to pay them as they deserve quite, but anyway, to pay them well, I hope. And then to move forward from there, because we believed we would get there and it would be worth doing. With those three things, right, which are all people, right? The people who are our students and who have been paying tuition for our courses, the people who have been donating so generously over the years, and the people who have been giving of their time and themselves. These are the things. It is our people that has enabled us to to sort of cut this Gordian knot, to kind of sneak ourselves into the banquet here. And it's not sneaking anymore. That's the thing, I had this surreal experience this past week of writing emails to a whole bunch of state Congress people here in the state of New Hampshire, and just like writing somebody like a public official like that, a senator in the state of New Hampshire, and talking about Signum University and offering to like sit down with them and just and tell them about Signum and what we're doing. Felt really weird, because we've never done that before. Anyway, yeah. So it's really, really cool what Signum has been able to accomplish. So anyway, so let me come back now to the big picture then. So what does this mean exactly for Signum in practical terms? What does this translate to? Well, as I've been kind of explaining this through and thinking this through, there are three phases of sort of the life of Signum, and of course someday there will be more, presumably, but from this vantage point there are three phases that we're going to be going through. Phase one was our startup phase. That phase is coming to an end. Sorry, I can't even say that sentence without okay, I'll try again. The startup phase of Signum University is coming to an end. We are about to enter phase two of our life. And phase two, so here's what phase two is going to look like. Phase two is not going to look immediately like expanding our programs, because again, we need to build the foundation of what we have, right? We have a wonderful program, but it is mostly upheld by volunteers. We need to have the firm base underneath. So what we're going to be doing a lot of expanding, but it's going to be internal expanding through different programs, different sort of initiatives that we have to bring in other students. That we will get access to more students through this credentialing process that we're entering into. People who really just couldn't take our classes before, or rather, I should say, people whose needs would not be met by our classes before we had completed our credentialing. I see several people asking, how can I support this effort? I'll get to that. As you might guess, I'm going to get to that. That will be coming up. Anyway, so we will, so like I said, at phase two, we will be expanding our student body, we'll be expanding our programming. I do hope to be able to add some other things. We're not going to add like totally new disciplines, right? Like we're not going to open up a history department or a philosophy department or anything like that yet. That will happen, but not yet, not in phase two. In phase two, we're going to continue with our language and literature program. We're going to be sort of expanding it and filling that out some. We may expand that into different areas. One aspiration that I would really love to do sometime during phase 2 would be to add an MFA program for creative writing. We've always wanted to do creative writing at Signum. We tried officially once before, and I'd love to come back to that. So I'd love to do it to add an MFA degree for creative writers. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. When I say phase 2, we're looking like 5 to 7 years. At least 5 years. It kind of depends. Who knows? If there's one thing I've learned in the last 7 years at Signum, it's that there is no way I can guess what 5 years from now is going to look like. But anyway, so here's the thing. At the end of that period, right, at the end of phase 2, as we begin to expand, to be able to expand the reach of our student body, to be able to sort of solidify our existing programs, maybe add something like an MFA, when we come to the point where we're able to pay our people, right, and we're able, so we've built a financial foundation that we can really stand firmly on, then we move forward into phase 3, and phase 3 is when we expand our programming. A couple of you were asking before, what are our ultimate goals? Do we have plans to do an undergraduate program? We absolutely have plans to do an undergraduate program. That's always been my number one goal. It's funny, I actually had a kind of a funny conversation about this just recently with somebody who asked me that, and I was like, oh yeah, we want to do an undergraduate program. And he was like, that's kind of interesting, because from everything I hear, the undergraduate programs, like, it's not where the money is, right? The undergraduate studies are really struggling. Like, it's graduate and professional programs where the real money is. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the struggling of the undergraduate programs is kind of the problem, right? They're struggling because the overhead is too high, right? The campuses are unsupportable, all that stuff I was talking about before. But I think we can really make a difference, right? I mean, I think that we can have an undergraduate program for which students can attend an undergraduate program full time and pay something like $10,000 a year in tuition. And of course, when I say tuition at Signum, no residential program, right? So that's the cost, right? Not just half the cost or whatever. So anyhow. Yeah, it's we definitely plan to expand to undergraduate. I would also love to add other graduate programs. Are we going to go on to doctorate programs? Possibly. I'm less certain about that. That's not something I see very clearly right now. I do see us expanding. Probably the first part, our first move as we shift into phase 3 would be to add other programs like our current language and literature program. So probably beginning with other master's degree programs within the Signum Graduate School. So we'd add something like a history program and a philosophy program and some other things like that. But then we would add the undergraduate program on top of that. Would we go, graduate level? Possibly. But we'll see. Yeah, Paul, a BA in Germanic philology. Why not, right? I mean, Paul, right, that when we have an undergraduate program, it's not like we're gonna make our philology program smaller, right? I mean, who would downsize Germanic philology, for crying out loud? That's like one of our core programs. So yeah, absolutely. That's totally going to happen. Yeah. Richard Rowland says, let us agree that a BA in Germanic philology would be the most BA. Yeah, no, you're right about that, Richard. I see you. But yeah, so we'll see. So I definitely would love to. I mean, of course, yeah, well, let me not get too far ahead of myself, but that is definitely what I see us doing. And like I said, after we transition here into phase 2, after we finish our credentialing process, it'll take us a few years, as we try to expand and grow our current program within our new, credentialed context here, and through cultivating relationships with all of those peer institutions, which will be our peer institutions now, and then as we move forward from there to begin to develop our new programming and hopefully fulfill that dream that I started with of having an undergraduate program that offers people the opportunity to get a really good education doing interactive synchronous educational experience with with awesome teachers, and be able to pay for it themselves. So okay, so that's the sort of the plan, how that would work. And by the way, let me add, what will this mean for Mythgard programs, right? Like, I mean, if you're one of those people who mostly follows our Mythgard programming, whether you're an Exploring the Lord of the Rings fan or Mythgard Academy fan or, film or whatever it is, that you're all of the above, that you enjoy and follow. The Mythgard Institute is, it is a child of Signum University. It's kind of ironic because it's, no, it's not ironic. It's slightly paradoxical because, of course, historically speaking, the Mythgard Institute is the child that begot its parent, right? Because Signum University really did come from the Mythgard Institute, or rather was kind of built around it. But Signum University is the host of the Mythgard Institute, and it is what supports and funds the Mythgard Institute. Almost all of the work of the Mythgard Institute is done by staff of Signum University. And the more and better our resources get, and the firmer our financial foundation becomes, the more we're going to be able to do with that. And I have big ideas about Mythgard. I would love to. I mean, I think that the stuff that we do with Tolkien studies is kind of awesome. I think we could do even more awesome things with Tolkien studies. But you know what else I think that we could do? Awesome things with things that aren't Tolkien studies. And wait, somewhere I hear Curtis and several other people cheering. But yeah, we've done a lot of Tolkien studies, and often I get people asking me, like, it's kind of Tolkien heavy, right? When are we gonna expand and do more science fiction? When are we gonna do more, like other stuff, right? And the answer is, we don't have the resources yet, right? But we will. And I get really excited about thinking about the kinds of things that the Mythgard Institute is going to be able to do as we continue to grow and develop. As the trunk of the tree. You've probably heard me describe my tree metaphor, right? How Signum University is the trunk of the tree. Our graduate program, which is our official credit-bearing program, which is the program, of course, that's being certified, is one of the branches, sort of our chief and central branch. The Mythgard Institute is another branch of that tree, and the more the tree itself thrives, the better the Mythgard Institute will be. So, anyway, that's definitely going to be a great thing, but there is, of course, still one last obstacle that we need to overcome. There is but one obstacle that remains between us and and our goal. Okay, I mean, the evaluation process also remains. Again, I'm not trying to downplay that. You can tell, though, I'm sure you can tell that for me, and all the way through this process, the struggle to get to the point where we can knock on the door has been such a challenge. It's been such a big struggle that just getting there, right? Just knocking boldly on the door and saying, "Hi, we're Signum University, and we want you to come and look at what we do, because we think that we stack up with any other university in the country." That's kind of amazing, right? So I'm so focused on that, getting up and knocking on the door, but we still there's a conversation we have to have, in the foyer of the building there before we get to sit down. But anyhow, the other thing is Simon is asking, do we have to fly people to New Hampshire for a physical in-person graduation ceremony. Nah, Virginia. That is to say, Mythmoot is where we have our graduation ceremony. We had our first graduation ceremony at Mythmoot last year. We're planning our second one this year. That's Mythmoot is where, I'm not saying Mythmoot will necessarily always be in Leesburg, Virginia. Maybe we'll move it someday. But Mythmoot, our annual gathering, is where we definitely plan to keep doing those. That's our sort of our family gathering as well. Anyway, yeah. And Catriona, I couldn't agree with you more. Catriona on the Twitch chat was just saying that, the fact that we can not only knock on the door, but that they, let me in and listen with interest to what we have to say is excellent progress. Oh man, is it? And again, I would like to emphasize again how grateful I am to the folks at the Department of Education in the state of New Hampshire. They have been top notch, and almost every anxiety that we had, and it's impossible not to have them, right? You read the requirements and you're like, oh man, if they wanted to say no, they have so many different excuses to say, that we don't count, or they won't look at us. They've been great. They've been really great, even acknowledging that, the statutes as they exist, they've been on the books for a while now, and they're not, there are places where the statutes as they're currently written are not quite in step with the modern world, and that always happens, right? These things always need updating, and so that Signum University is not only accepted, but that our candidacy, is really being treated as an opportunity to say, hey, let's revisit the process, right? I might be able to be involved in helping them think through some of the, and even rewrite perhaps some of these statutes as they review them, as, the conversations that we've been having around our candidacy has really, demonstrated there are some things maybe that we need to rethink. So, anyway, so yeah, they've been really awesome. As I say, I can't say enough about them. But anyway, so back to this other obstacle. It will surprise no one to hear that the primary obstacle that still stands in front of us is money. So remember how I said that they assume, like everyone in this system at every level assumes that you are either part of an institution which has a lot of resources or have a lot of money yourself. That's true all the way down. It's true on the state level. It's at least as true with the accrediting bodies as well. So let me brace yourselves here. Let me show you this. So this is, let me refresh this page, which I've had sitting open for more than 20 minutes. Okay, so this is, let me resize this for the sake of posterity. There we go. And for the Twitch folks. Okay. This is the page you can find on our donate tab at Signum University under credential fees. Okay. So this is the big deal. And it's a lot of money. This is an expensive process. This is I want to be totally transparent about this, right? I'm not like ballparking. I'm not, these are not estimates. I didn't make up any of these figures. You can tell, because I would certainly not have made up these particular figures. Let me share that. Let me, in fact, also share my screen with the people who are watching on the webinar. That would also be a good step to take here. This is what happens when you broadcast on lots of different things at once. Okay. And there you are. All right. There it is. So again, you can find this page. Go to signumuniversity.org, go to the donate tab, and we're at the top of the donate tab, the credential fees here. So this is very exciting, but this is also rather expensive. So this is a breakdown of all the fees and costs associated with the state certification process. It is a $10,000 fee just to incorporate in the state of New Hampshire as a university. And you see all the other fees associated with that, down to the cost, even just the cost of like providing the paper copies that we have to print out 6 paper copies of our documentation. That's going to cost almost $750 by itself, right? Yeah, so the total costs of for certification to get us through the certification process is $23,720, almost $24,000. It's going to take to get us through the certification process. This is not something we had worked into our annual budget for this year, and even if we had tried to work it in, there wouldn't have been room for it because that's not how our budget functions. This is a lot of money. Like I said, we're kind of surprised. I had been kind of my ambitious plan. If you'd asked me 3 months ago, I would have told you that my ambitious plan was for us to get our documentation together this spring so that like no later than this summer, we would be ready to go up and knock on the door. And I was feeling all excited and proud about that. And then, these meetings with the Department of Education came down, and now here we are all of a sudden looking like we could be very, very likely we will be finished with the certification process by the end of this current fiscal year. So imagine my surprise about that. Tarlonia, I'm going to come back to that question in just a second. A bunch of people asking about state certification and accreditation. I am very happy to explain that here in just a second. So, no, Starsha, they do accept an electronic copy, but Starsha actually, it's a really cool, it's a nice little glimpse into the world, right? They ask for 6 printed copies like it's nothing, like that's assumed. And then they do ask, like there was an addendum to ask for an electronic copy. And when they talk about the electronic copy, they act like that's the big deal. Like, are you going to be able to submit an electronic copy? And I'm like, yeah, we'll be able to submit an electronic copy. Everything we have is electronic. I think I can still actually hold in one hand all of the printed documentation that Signum University has for its existence. Like it still is in one filing cabinet drawer over here. We're a virtual institution. Everything's electronic. So this is how it works. So anyway, so these are the fees, and this is the really hard thing about this. Of course, this is obviously, as I said, this is above and beyond our annual budget, and I don't know. You guys know that trying to save people money has been a big part of what's, as I was explaining, has been a big part of what's motivated this. My own upbringing, and I was a poor boy, and I never had any money, and being able to give people without resources the opportunity to do things has always been what's one of the chief things that's motivated me. And I am super conscious of the generosity that so many of you have already shown. I mean, the giving that you guys have done, so many of you have already done to support our annual fund, has been so wonderful. Our annual fund is on pace to be bigger this year than it's ever been before. That's just, entirely remarkable. And I'm so grateful for your generosity. And so I can't help but feel slightly self-conscious in saying, and on top of that, in addition to that, not just as a subset, but in addition to that, we now also need another $24,000. But that's of course exactly the situation. The annual fund that we've been raising money for over the course of the year is to support our annual budget, is to be able to support our operations as we've, to try to help us carry on operating as we've been operating this year. And that's been great. But again, there's no way we can take this $24,000 out of that. I mean, our total budget for the year, like the entire budget, including everything that we pay faculty, we teach all of our classes and everything else, is like $170,000. And some of that is even kind of because like in our budget we have to count our event stuff, right? So but our events, we always, like, our goal, and as many of you know, our goal in our events is to cut even, right? So if you add up all of our events, like all the income that we bring in from events, it kind of looks like, hey, that's a lot of income. Except no, it's actually not, because we pay it all out. Like we pay for the event with it. The actual net to Signum is very, very little from any of our events. So if you take the events money out of the budget, yeah, our total income for the year is like maybe 120 or something like that. So 120,000, I mean. So as you can see, like this is for us. I assume, and I think this is a totally fair assumption, all of the fee structures about this kind of thing assume that universities have lots of money, right? That that they're not going to miss this. It's like this, for most schools, $24,000 is like the change you find between the couch cushions, right? That is not so for Signum University, not at all. And frankly, I hope it will never be the case for. I mean, I hope that Signum University's annual budget becomes so large that that we won't reel in shock at numbers like this. But nevertheless, I hope we're never going to lose that much change between our couch cushions. We got better things to do with it. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a big deal. I mean, even like the incorporation fee, right? To incorporate a for-profit business. And if you want to start a landscaping business in the state of New Hampshire, the incorporation fee is like $100, right? But you want to start a university in New Hampshire, the incorporation fee is $10,000. It's just the way it is, right? I mean, it's the way it is everywhere. Yeah. So anyway, so this is the situation. Let me say, just for everyone who was able to help, for everyone who's able to donate to help to make this possible, help to get Signum to this next level and really help us to begin phase 2. This is obviously this means a very great deal to us. One thing I would say, obviously we are always so grateful to our donors. You may remember the sort of thank you structure that we had, right? Where if you give at a certain level, we will we will give you different kinds of gifts. I believe those are Curtis is going to be still here, aren't they? Yeah, here they are. Our donor appreciation program. That's right. All of these things are still in force. So like if you've already given us a donation and if you're able also to donate to help support our certification fees, we'll add the donation that you give to the donation that you already gave and move you up to different levels. So all of these things that we talked about in the campaign, they still apply. They apply all the way through our fiscal year, and they're always kind of cumulative in that way. So that stuff, certainly I encourage you to look back again. That's the annual fund page here under the donate tab where you can find that. In addition, because this is such a special moment, I would really like to recognize the people who made this possible, right? I mean, it's not like the founding moment, because we were founded 7 years ago. We've been operating for 7 years, but this is a really crucial moment. What I'm picturing, what I would really like to do, is I would like, we'll be building, of course, a new webpage to talk about our New Hampshire certification when the day comes that it is complete. We'll have a page describing our certification and our role in the state of New Hampshire. And on that page, I want to build a wall. I want to build a big wall and our wall of gratitude. And so for everybody who donates $25 or above, we'd be happy to put your name on one of the stones in the wall, or let you do whatever you want. We'll give you options, right? You can choose like what you want your little brick to look like, and if you want to dedicate it to somebody, if you want to put your favorite quote on it, if you want it, whatever you want to do. We just want to acknowledge and recognize the people. I think it would be a really fun kind of visual symbol, because as I said, this is what we've had no institutional affiliation. We've had no money, right? We have no we have no endowment. We're a startup from nothing, but we have people, right? And we have awesome people who have supported us every step of the way. And it is you guys who have made this possible. I mean, I came up with the idea. I've been talking about this for a while, but it's you guys who have made this possible. So yeah, Brandon, you can get a brick. Absolutely. We will. We'll set that up. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So we will build a wall. And if you're thinking that if you know my sense of humor well enough, and you suspect that I can't help but think about doing a sort of parody of our digital version of bricks and mortar, right? Then you would be correct if you were thinking of that. But anyway, it's going to be fun. So we'll vary the size of the bricks, right? So, at $25, at $100, $500, $1,000, $2,500, as the levels, the donation levels we have here on the donation page. We will, we'll give you a bigger brick so that you can write more on it and stuff. It'll be cool. So that's what, that's what we're going to do. And you'll notice, so the donation form on this page looks exactly like the donation form that you have probably seen before. The major difference, you'll see the solicitation code down here, Signum credentials. That's to indicate that you want your gift to be dedicated to our credentialing fees specifically. And you should be able to see that drop down even on our old, let's see if I manage to do this properly, even on our, go back to our old Donate Now page. It defaults to the annual fund, but yes, you can shift it to Signum credentials there as well. Hooray! That did work properly. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you guys in advance for all of the help and support that you guys have been able to give, and look forward to let me explain the next steps and good question. A couple of people were asking, when do we need to have this raised by? I don't know, actually. That's been a little bit vague. Some of this is going to be due very soon. In particular, the stuff which is specifically for the comprehensive review. The incorporation fee is not paid. It's not part of the Department of Education process. That is a fee that is due to the Secretary of State's office, which comes after. So first you get approved by the Department of Education and the Higher Education Commission. And then once you've been approved by them, then the Secretary of State will talk to you and we can officially incorporate in the state of New Hampshire. And that, I believe, is when that part of the fee will come due. So that won't come due until the end, whereas the rest of it, so the other $13,720, are going to be ones that will come due sooner as part of the process that we're involved with here. So within the next couple months, we're definitely going to be needing that stuff. So let me end also by talking about the next steps. And of course, to talk about accreditation. So first, let me explain that process, because a lot of people, I think, misunderstand accreditation. The two steps are completely separate steps. Certification is governed by the states. That's why we're applying in the state of New Hampshire. Certification is sort of the legal presence of the institution. You are a completely legal, totally legitimate educational organization when you are certified with the state. The accreditation process is a separate process. It is a completely voluntary and optional process. It is not required for any legal reason of any kind. The accrediting bodies are not government bodies at all. They are private corporations whose entire purpose is just to oversee, they establish standards and, judge whether or not institutions live up to those standards. That's what an accrediting body is. Yeah. And make money. I didn't say it, Paul. That was not me. You said that, not me. But yeah, we'll get around to that. Because I have to say, actually, the $24,000 that it's going to take for state certification is a good deal less than the entrance fee for accreditation, actually. I've been doing a bunch of reading of fine print over the last few weeks as we've been moving forward. We finally have gotten to a place where I'm still very much not looking past the certification stage, but I'm beginning to make more concrete plans than I have been able to yet, because certification is necessary as a preliminary. You can't apply for accreditation until you're certified. So that's where my focus has been. So I've been aware. We've been targeting accreditation all the way through, but we've not yet been there, sort of practically. Yeah. As I say, I've been reading a lot of fine print lately, and it's a lot. I must admit that I have been a little bit surprised at the fees that are being charged by the accrediting bodies, and how that's going. It's well, we'll see. I have to have some conversations with them to see how willing they are going to be to work with us. But on paper, the entrance fee to be, well, okay, no, I can knock on the door, but to have the door opened to us for accreditation is going to be somewhere between $60,000 and $100,000, according to the documentation that they have published. And if that makes you gasp, I've been gasping for quite some time in contemplating that. Again, it's clearly premised on a system that assumes that that's, chump change for schools. How it can be chump change for a school that's starting up for someplace new like us. I mean, that's most of our entire operating costs for a year. But anyway, accreditation is a big deal, and I support the idea of accreditation. We are working towards accreditation. I am still. But I'll have another meeting later on as we get closer. The way that this will work is we'll complete the certification process. Then I will begin having some concrete conversations with the people in different accrediting bodies and see how we can move forward. To see what we can do. One bridge at a time, D-May, is exactly what we're doing. We shall immediately be looking to that bridge next, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. As I say, accreditation is a wonderful thing. It's a really interesting thing, and a lot of people misunderstand it. A lot of people mistake accreditation for like legal legitimacy. It's totally not, and. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about this much more. I can tell somewhere a bunch of people on my staff starting to get nervous about what I'm about to say. But yeah, first things first. We will get to where we need to go. This is our first step, and when we finish the state certification process, we will have arrived, and then. What comes next, and we will tackle the next adventure as it comes. So, thank you so much to everybody who has And several of you have mentioned that you've already donated. I appreciate that so much. We'll be giving some updates on that, of course, on the progress of that as we go. Obviously, as we continue to move through the process. By the way, so when we at the culmination of the state certification process is the meeting of the Higher Education Commission. I've mentioned them before. All those presidents of all the universities in New Hampshire and everybody, and a few other people. Anyway. That meeting, which will be the formal hearing of the case of Signum University and the final vote on whether or not they should be granted acceptance by the Higher Education Commission, that meeting is open to the public. Just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe we can live stream it. I don't even know. So that's going to be pretty cool. So whether that happens in May or whether that happens in June, of course, I'll keep everybody posted about that. And we will. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll throw a party. You realize, of course, that one way or the other, whether it's May or whether it's June, both of them are before Mythmoot. By the time we get to Mythmoot this year, which is coming up right around the corner, by the time we get to Mythmoot, we could have this process complete, right? And that could make Mythmoot 5 a party of a special magnificence indeed. It's gonna be pretty cool. It's gonna be neat. So this is such an exciting moment. I'm so glad to be able to share it with you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything. And again, I know it sounds hokey, but I've been writing this stuff up. I just wrote like a 100-page document talking about Signum and who Signum is. I wrote this long preamble describing, here's what Signum is trying to do. Here's who we are. Here's how we're different from everybody. And here is how we did it. Here's how we did the impossible. Here's how I was told it was not impossible. I was told that it was practically impossible by a member of one of the certification boards when I first called them back in 2011. And they told me, quote, frankly, I don't see how anybody could possibly do it. And I was like, oh, well, that's very encouraging. Thank you for that, as I'm just beginning. Anyway, so I've just been writing up this preamble about how, doggone it, we actually did it. And we did it because of you, because we have had people. Signum had nothing, but except one thing. There was one thing we've always had, and that has been people. Thank you guys for coming along on this journey, for supporting everything about this as we've gone along. Whether it's been through your attendance, through your promotion, and your social media presence, whether it's been through your donations that you've been able to give, through your tuition, to our wonderful students, and to our wonderful auditors who have been such a big part of this program all the way through. It has been wonderful, and the story, we have been part of a great story here, and the story is not over yet, but it is coming to a really important moment. And whatever happens from here, you guys have been a part of a really wonderful story, and I just thank you for joining me in that. So thank you guys so much for everything that you've done and everything that you are continuing to do. And I will keep you posted. There will be hopefully more exciting updates as we move forward. And thanks for joining me tonight. And again, more soon on all of this stuff. So thank you guys very much. And I will talk to you guys soon. Any final questions you guys have? I want to make sure to give questions. Thank you guys so much for your good wishes. I haven't cried, so I told myself I wouldn't cry, but thank you guys. Yeah. So Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. Good night, and I will talk to you guys soon. See ya.